Hello, everyone. My name is Danny Banks. I'm a principal design technologist at AWS Amplify. This is my cat, Bert Macklin. He'll be joining me for this webinar where we're going to be talking about how to easily upload and manage files with Amazon S3 and a Next.js application with AWS Amplify. So to get started, let's talk about what AWS Amplify is. And then we're going to build some features with Amplify using auth, data, and storage. We're going to use the Amplify UI StorageManager component to upload files. And then I'll get into a demo and actually write some code and get some live stuff up on the screen. And at the end, I'll have some helpful resources for you as well. So let's start with what is AWS Amplify. I like to think of Amplify as a suite of tools. Each of these things you can use a la carte, or they work better together. So you can use Amplify Library, Studio, CLI, UI components, and hosting all together, and you get a really excellent tool chain across the board. So we'll start with Amplify libraries. These are use case specific libraries. We have JavaScript libraries, Flutter, Android, iOS, to build cloud-powered mobile and web applications. And we say use case centric because we mean, you have authentication and you have storage and you have data, but we abstract away the AWS services that you're using under the hood. So authentication uses AWS Cognito, but you don't necessarily need to know that. And you can use with backends that you have newly created with Amplify CLI or Studio, or you can use them with an existing AWS backend. And Amplify Studio is a visual interface for setting up your app backend and also a visual interface to build UI components and generate React code. We offer two kind of UI building tools. One is a Figma to code solution. You have a Figma file, you can generate React code from it. And the other is generating forms automatically from your data models that you define in Amplify. Next, we have Amplify CLI. This is a CLI tool that allows you to configure and manage your app cloud backend from your local desktop from your CLI. You can configure all your cloud functionality using the CLI's interactive workflows. And similarly with the Amplify libraries, it's use case centric. So you'll say things like Amplify add auth, and it'll set up all of the resources that you need to have authentication in your app. Next, we have the Amplify UI libraries. This is an open source design system, an open source UI library with cloud connected components such as an authentication component and a storage component. And we have pre-built dozens of components that are themable, accessible, and can connect to the cloud really easily. So you can build your entire application UI with Amplify UI library. And mostly we support React. We have really great support for React components across the board. We also have the authentication component for Android, for Swift, for Flutter, for React Native, for Angular, and for Vue as well. But today we're going to be talking about React. And lastly, we have Amplify Hosting, which is our fully managed CI/CD hosting service for fast, secure, and reliable static server-side rendered applications. So Next.js, Nuxt, other SSR, SSG applications that you want to deploy. You connect them up to a GitHub repo or a Git repository, and you get PR previews and lots of other great functionality. So you can host your entire front end with hosting. You can build your UI with Amplify UI. You can set up your cloud infrastructure with Amplify CLI. You can manage your resources and UI with Amplify Studio, and Amplify libraries connects your UI to your cloud backend. So that's kind of the full story of Amplify, connecting basically everything so you can build an entire application with AWS Amplify. And so now let's talk about the auth, the authentication category with AWS Amplify really quickly. It is powered by Amazon Cognito, which is secure and scalable user directory. It has user pools, multi-factor authentication and full encryption, enterprise and social identity federation support. So you can have, log in with Google or log in with Apple or Amazon, and it allows your users to control AWS resources. So you can specify which users have access to which resources, and it has a standards-based authentication. So it's really, really powerful, really secure, used by a lot of customers to build their authentication with AWS. And on top of the AWS auth category, we have pre-built UI components to add sign-in, sign-up workflows, as well as multi-factor authentication, forgot password, sending out email confirmations, all that type of stuff. You just need to drop a component into your application, and all this stuff comes for free. Everything is completely stylable and customizable, and very flexible. And it's built on top of the AWS Amplify authentication library, which includes also social login functionality like Facebook, Google, or Amazon, automatic integration with existing Amazon Cognito resources if you already have Cognito set up. And it includes custom authentication flows such as CAPTCHA, or if you want to have a checkbox for users to accept your terms and services. And now let's talk about Amplify Storage. This is an intelligent storage framework that supports Amazon S3 out of the box. And so you can connect your app to a cloud storage backend with a few lines of code. It has network optimized and efficient uploads and downloads of files, as well as multi-part, asynchronous, and parallel uploads for big files. I believe you can upload files up to multiple terabytes. I haven't tested that because that would take a while, but that is definitely something that is possible. And the security is ensured through multiple access levels, public for completely public files, protected for files that you want to be able to share, but only the person who uploaded to be able to write or delete, and private, meaning only the user that uploaded it can access it. And on top of the AWS Amplify storage category, we have the storage manager component for React, similar to our authentication component called the authenticator. You drop it into your app, and it allows users to upload files to your S3 bucket using Amplify storage library. And the storage library also includes other storage commands like putting files, storage.put, storage.get, and storage.list to build a file storage experience with a few lines of code. And it also includes other APIs to cover other scenarios, such as tracking the status of a file and retrying uploads. And now I'm going to get into the demo portion where we're going to actually build an application using Next.js and Amplify to upload files to S3. And what we're going to do is we're going to create kind of like a very simple version of a Craigslist application. Users can create a post that has images attached to it and save it, and everyone can see those posts. So let's get into the demo right now. So to get started, we are going to create a Next application using create Next app. So let's do yarn create Next app. And we're going to call it Dan's List because it's like Craigslist, but my name is Danny, so we're going to call it Dan's List. And now this will install all of the packages, set up our Next application. Don't need to worry about all this stuff. So now it's going to ask, do I want TypeScript? Let's use TypeScript. ESLint, sure. Tailwind, let's go no. Source directory, yes. And we're not going to use the app router for now using like React server components and stuff. Let's not open up that can of worms. And we don't want to customize the import alias. The default that they have is fine. So it's going to download all these packages, set everything up, and we're done. So let's cd into our new directory, Dan's list. And now if we take a look, we have all of our files, we have our node modules, all the stuff is set up. Okay, so now we are going to add the AWS Amplify packages that we're going to be using. Let's do yarn add AWS Amplify UI React and Amplify UI React storage and AWS Amplify. So this will give us the Amplify UI React library as well as the AWS Amplify JavaScript libraries and the storage manager component as well. Okay, so now that this is done, we have our dependencies. Now let's set up our Amplify application. And if first you'll need to have the Amplify CLI installed. The instructions are in the article at the end of this demo, but assuming you have the Amplify CLI installed, you'll run amplify init to initialize a new Amplify project. And it will take a few seconds. It'll set up some resources for you so that you can have an Amplify application in your AWS console. Don't worry about running Amplify upgrade. I guess they just published a new version in the last hour. And our name for this project, we'll call it Dan's list. It will intelligently see what type of project you're working on. So it says the app type is JavaScript and the JavaScript framework is React. That's all good. So we'll just proceed with the above configuration. And then it'll ask you how you want to authenticate with AWS. So I have an AWS profile. We'll use the default. And so now it's going to start deploying some resources into my AWS account. And once it does that, I'll open up my AWS console and show you kind of where you can find these things. So it's going to take a little bit of time. While we're doing that, while it's doing that, let's go over here and let's open up our code browser. And we can start taking a look here. So we have pages and some styles. This is all the stuff that Next.js sets up for us automatically. And while we are doing this, let's do yarn dev so we can start the local server and see what we get so far. Let's go over here, open up localhost, and this is the default Next.js starter. Okay, so Amplify, we need to share sensitive information. Okay, so that is all set up. So now if we run Amplify console, it will open up the AWS console for us into our Amplify application. So now we have this app Dan's list, and I created a environment called dev. And we see it just creates some initial resources. We don't have anything like authentication or file storage set up just yet, but we can add those with a CLI command, amplify add auth. So let's do that right now. Let's add storage, actually, amplify add storage. And the type of storage we want contents of files, images, audio, video. We will need authentication. So let's add authentication to our app right now. We'll just use the default configuration just for simplicity. Users should be able to sign in. You can choose email or phone number or username. Oops. We'll just do email. And then we don't want to configure any advanced settings. Now it'll just have us set up some names for our resources, like our Cognito user pool and stuff like that, and our S3 bucket. Let's just use the defaults for now. and auth and guest users should have access to these files. We'll have them both be able to create, update, and read, but not delete. We don't need a Lambda trigger, but if we want it, we can have it. So now we have it configured. Now we need to do Amplify push to actually set up those resources in our AWS account. So let's run Amplify push. And now this will actually start to create the S3 buckets and Cognito user pools and stuff like that. So it's deploying all of these stacks to our AWS account. And so while that is working, let's actually start up our front-end Next.js application and get some styling and stuff like that done. So let's add a folder for our components. And then let's add a new file called layout. And let's do and so let's create a very simple layout, and we'll use some of the Amplify UI, just primitive components like view and flex and buttons and stuff like that. So let's create a view for Amplify UI React. Let's give it a min height of 100 VH, background colors of background. And then let's do a flex for our header. And then let's add some links here using the next link component. So let's get the next link. And this will be our home. And then let's add a couple more. Okay, let's save that. And then let's also, because this is our layout component, let's have it a children prop, and then dot props with children. Okay, so now that we have the layout, let's add it to our app.tsx file. First, we're going to import the UI React styles. Then let's wrap this in our new layout component. Okay, that is good. Let's take a look. Okay, nothing has really changed yet. But now, there we go. We can see our little header here, home create test. Okay, so we are all good. Let's check to see how our deployment went. Deployment was saved successfully. So I think we are all good. If we go back to the console, let's just refresh this page. And now we can see we have the authentication and file storage categories added. So let's add a storage manager component to our application. So let's add our create page now. TSX. And let's add the storage manager component. And we need to give it some required properties. One is the access level. So this as you saw earlier, public, private, or protected. Those are the 3 access levels that we have for storage. So let's just make it public because it's easy. And then you need to specify the accepted file types. So we'll say the accepted file types are any images. Oh, sorry, image star. And a max file count. So let's just say you can only upload 5 files. And let's save this. And let's go back to our application, go to the create page, and we have this nice little file uploader right here. So I'll click browse files. Let's just choose a file just to make sure it's working. And here we go. So I forgot one step here, one very simple step. I forgot to configure our Amplify application. So let's go back to our app.tsx file and let's import Amplify and import AWS config AWS export. So this AWS exports file is created by the Amplify CLI, and that has all the information that the front end needs to connect to our Amplify backend. So now we will do amplify.configure AWS config, and let's also add SSR true so we get server-side rendering support. Okay, so now this is configured. Let's go back here, and it actually already started and automatically uploaded. So this file is now uploaded to our S3 bucket. So to see that in action, let's actually enable Amplify Studio, which is the visual development environment. So we'll turn that on. It'll take a couple seconds to deploy some resources, and then we'll be able to see the actual files that we're uploading to our Amplify application. While that is being handled, let's just make sure everything is good here. Okay. Now it's still setting up Amplify Studio. I'll need a couple more seconds. Actually, while that's happening, let's go to our homepage and clean it out. So we don't need any of this stuff. Next.js gives us, we'll just save. Okay, Studio is enabled. So now from the console, you can click this big orange button that says Launch Studio, and this will bring you to Amplify Studio, which is outside of the AWS console. And here we can see all of our deployments. We can see that we have authentication set up and we have storage set up with the configuration that we set in the CLI. And now if we go to File Browser, we can see these 3 folders, public, protected, and private. And if we open up public, we can see the file that we just uploaded with the file name that we did. And there's my cat that you probably saw earlier. Okay, so we have file upload working already, easy. Now let's add some more cool stuff on top of it. So first, let's set up a data model using Amplify Studio's graphical data modeling capabilities. So because we're building a Craigslist type app, let's call this a post model. It has an ID, it has a title, it has a body, and it has images. And images, because it's images, it can be an array, so multiple images. Let's save and deploy this. So this will take another couple minutes. This is deploying AWS AppSync. I'm showing right here. So it's creating resources for AppSync, for DynamoDB, to actually save the data, and it's super easy on the front end to actually write to the database and read from the database and stuff like that. But while that's deploying, let's add authentication to our app. So let's go to our create page, and we only want logged in users to be able to create posts. So instead of just exporting this default function, we have a higher order function that can wrap components called with authenticator. So let's do export default with authenticator, and we're going to wrap our create page. So let's save that. And we will go back here. Now our create page is behind a login page. So you can see you can sign in, forgot password, create account. So let's create an account right now. I'll just use my email address. I'll use the password, confirm my password, and create an account. And then it will send your email address a confirmation where you'll need to put in a confirmation code. I'm just doing this off screen so you don't see my email. Confirmation code confirmed. And now we have access to the create page. So we've just added authentication to our application in like 2 lines of code. So I think that's pretty cool. So this is still deploying. Now let's add a sign out button to our header while we're still waiting for it to deploy. So let's go into our layout. We're going to use the router from Next.js. So const router equals use router. And then we are going to also use the use authenticator hook as well. So that we will do authenticator user sign out. And now in here, let's just put text or dot user. Let's do email username, and then let's add a button with a on-click event, and that is going to sign out the user. And then after signed out, we'll do router.push. We'll take them to the home page. And then sign out. All right, so now we have a sign out button. Before I go back to the actual application, we do need to wrap our application in the authenticator provider for this to work properly. So let's do authenticator.provider. All right, so now it's wrapped in the authenticator provider, so we should have access to that, and our data model has been deployed successfully. Okay. Oh, I forgot to check if there is a user first before accessing the username. So we will do user null. Let's move this stuff to here. Okay. Okay, now that works. So now let's go back to our create page. Let's log in once again. And now we have this nice sign out button. And because we don't have a username field, this username is just an ID. Let's not worry about that for now though. So we have our data model. So let's pull in the latest changes because we set this up in Amplify Studio and not the CLI. The configuration is saved in the cloud, but not locally. So let's go to the Amplify CLI and run an Amplify poll. And this will pull down the information and the configuration that we set up from the cloud. So it's going to pull down our GraphQL schema, generate some components, and then after that, we should be ready to connect to our database. So let's actually set up this create page to create a data model with some images now. So let's go to our create page. I'm just going to do this very kind of quickly. We will just do some React use states. Make sure to import React. And then we will set up let's do a flex as form column. And now let's set up some text fields. We have these text fields. Make sure you import them. Okay, so we have a text field for title, one for body, and then we have the storage manager component. Then let's add a button to submit. And then let's override the onSubmit event for the form. On submit, we will do a submit, which let's create now. And for now, let's just do console.log title body. Okay, so now we have a form set up. Let's go back here. Okay, we have title, body, and files. Let's just do this and then submit. And one thing we forgot to do is prevent it from default actually submitting. Okay. Now let's go back here. Submit. Now we see this object. Good. We haven't populated the files just yet, so let's do that. So by default, the storage manager will upload files automatically. So there's event handlers to tie into when an upload happens. So let's use the on upload success method, which will return the key that the file was saved under. And so let's set the files once an upload has been successful. Let's test it out to make sure it's working. Let's add a file, upload. Now let's submit. And then now we have, this is the key that we're uploading the file under. So that is working. Now let's actually save this to our data model. So to do that, we're going to use data store, which is abstraction on top of our data or API category that allows us to easily save data. So let's do data store from Amplify, and we'll do save. And then it's going to save a new post. So this is an auto-generated file when we did Amplify pull. Because we set up our data schema, it creates these models for us when we did an Amplify pull in this models directory. So this was created for us automatically. So we have a post model. We're going to give it the title that we have, the body that we have, the images, because it's just an array of strings. We'll do object.keys files. I'm saving the files in an object just so I know that the file names are unique and I'm not saving multiple times in case there are re-renders or something. And then at the end of the data store.save, we will do, because it's a promise, let's use the next router. And we will just go back to the home page. So router.push homepage. Okay, so now we have a working form, hopefully, that should save title, body, and an image. Okay, and while we didn't get any confirmation that's saved because we're not seeing any of the posts now, it did save. So let's create a homepage where we can just view all of the posts. To make this a little quicker, I'll just kind of copy and paste most of this and just kind of explain what I'm doing. So we can also use data store to query for data. So what I'm going to do, let's make sure everything is imported correctly. Data store, post models, it's Amplify. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to observe the post model for any changes, and then it's going to return kind of an array of all the posts. And I'm going to sort that by the updated at field, which I didn't explicitly add to the data model, but is always added, and sorted by descending. And we're going to put it in this posts state. And so now in the post state, I'm going to create a component. Again, I'll just copy and paste this so you don't need to worry about it, but I'll create a postcard TSX component and paste some stuff in here. Now, back on our home page, we will add some stuff. Let's make sure these are imported correctly. And then inside here, we're just going to iterate over our posts and display them in the post card. There we go. Save all that. And now that should work. We have our first post, has the title and body, and this beautiful image of our cat, my cat, bird. So we have all of that set up. Now we actually have a working version of a very simple application that allows you to create a post with images, save them, and display those. So that is all done. And one thing we can do actually is, we don't even necessarily need to make this whole create form, because Amplify creates update and create forms based on our models automatically for us. So let's, in our layout, we created this test page. So I'm going to create this test page using the auto-generated form that Amplify creates for us. So let's create a test.tsx. And in here, let's do a post create form. So this again is a component that is created for us automatically because we modeled our data within Amplify. And let's put this inside a card so it looks nicer. Card, variation, elevated. Okay, save that. Oops, I said text test. There we go. So now we should have a test page. And we do, and we have this form. It doesn't look quite right because the images isn't our file uploader component, our storage manager. So let's go to Amplify Studio and open up the UI library tab. So here you can see there is a post create form and a post update form, and these are created for us automatically based on our data model. So let's actually go and configure our post create form. So this images field, it's set it as a text field because in our data model, images is just an array of strings, an array of text. So let's actually change this to a storage field. Now we'll get the storage manager component. Keep the label. We'll mark it as public, and we will set the accepted file type as image. And then there's some more settings. We don't need to worry about those. Changes are saved automatically. So now all I have to do is run an Amplify pull again, and it will get these changes that I made to this auto-generated form and generate a new UI component for us. So you can see it's generating the UI components. And that should be done. We'll probably get an error. Okay, we got an error and it just went away automatically. So now we actually see title, body, images, and this is just generated for us automatically. So let's just, put some stuff here. And then let's add, let's add 3 files. Those will upload automatically and submit. And it just kind of clears the state for now. But if we go back to the home page, we can see 3 images of my cats, and I actually have 2 cats. And that is an easy way to do it. We can also, there's an on success handler where we can, again, navigate back to the home page if we want to after the form is saved. So let's do router equals user router and do router dot push. Okay, so now that is saved. Let's go back here. Add some more information here. Add 2 files. And then once these are uploaded, we'll submit, we'll go back to the home page, and our data is already saved. And so that is most of what I had for the demo. One of the cool things about using the pre-built component, if we go to the file browser in Amplify Studio, if you go into the public folder, the pre-generated form will actually hash the contents of the files and use that for the key. So these files were like pxl underscore something, but now these are actually unique hashes based on the file contents. So we know that users won't overwrite other people's files, which I think is pretty neat. Some other things that you can do at this point that I haven't really covered, theming your application. All of the components in here are completely themable. The storage manager component, the authenticator component, everything is super themable. To just show you a real quick example of that, I'm just going to copy and paste a theme into our app.tsx file, which is put there. And then all we need to do is wrap our application in a theme provider. Theme. There we go. And if we go back here, now we have square buttons and kind of square box shadows and stuff like that. So our inputs and our storage manager component is all, in a different theme. And same with if we show the authenticator component. And so, yeah, hopefully I showed you a lot of what Amplify can do. Again, also, if you want, you can now deploy this front-end application using Amplify hosting, using our CI/CD solution. So if you just check this into GitHub and connect that GitHub repository to Amplify hosting, now you'll have a front-end hosted with Amplify, back-end hosted with Amplify, UI components and UI libraries all connected with Amplify. And so hopefully this kind of shows you how all of the pieces of Amplify can work really well together. And I didn't even show you everything that Amplify can do. We also have Figma to code capabilities in our UI designer. But we'll save that for another time and another day. And hopefully you found that demo really useful. Here are some QR codes and some links. The first one is to a blog post about the storage manager component. That includes a lot of the steps that we did for this demo application, as well as some other ones that we didn't quite get to. And then the second one is a link about just Amplify in general, how to build and ship full stack web and mobile applications with the flexibility and breadth of AWS services, and use case specific abstractions to help you build cloud enabled applications with no cloud expertise needed. Thank you for joining me and my cat Bert. You can follow Amplify on Twitter at AWS Amplify, and hope to see you later.